So we're in Clovis, California. We just finished installing a new cartridge in this Moen Chateau valve. So it's an old style Moen, and here's the cartridge for it. So it's the 1225, and we use Moen. We don't use Danco or other products. I'm sure they're fine, but we like to use the original equipment that goes in there. Anyway, so this was dripping, and the old cartridge had failed in a couple of different ways. One, it's sticking. You can't turn it side to side. I mean, you can, but there's a lot of force involved, and then pulling it in and out was becoming very difficult, for functionality. So just scaled up and old. I'm not sure how long it's been in there. Home was built in 91. And then, of course, you can see the two little tabs that help retain. There's a little wire clip, a brass clip, that slides in and retains the cartridge from pushing out under pressure. And these plastic tabs are what that clip sets against. So they're both snapped off. Anyway, so that one's done. New one's in. Works great. So the only thing that you'll see, that you'll notice is, it shouldn't drip. It's a brand new cartridge, which means, once you shut this valve off all the way, as long as it is pushing in all the way and shutting off, it'll be a period of time, and I can't tell you how long that is. It shouldn't be that long while all the water drains out of the shower arm and, of course, the shower heads. If it's diverted to this head only, it'll drip out of there. If it's diverted here, it'll drip out of here. Both sides, it'll just, you got to let it drain. So all the water has to come out of the arm, out of this little device right here, diverter portion of the shower heads, and then the head. But once the water's drained, it should not drip any further. If you come back 5 minutes later and it's dripping, then either the valve's not pushed in all the way, or something's happened with the new cartridge for whatever reason. So you'll have to just keep an eye on that, make sure that it's functioning correctly. But right now the functionality is great. So it's just on off right now, and you can see it just pulls on and off. So that's working great, and then back and forth. This is one finger operation now, as opposed to before, you really had to grab a hold of it. So like I say, this will drain down and it will take a period of time. It's a pretty big rain shower head sitting in there, and you can see water coming out of the top too. So right now water is draining down, or it's actually draining down from the very high point of that head, dripping out, and draining down here, dripping out. Once it's done, it should be off. So that's the shower. Over here on this side, we've got a Delta faucet, and again, this is original to the home. It's 2 sinks. So the hot side, it appeared that you had leaking out of here, and then of course it was dripping, which meant when this was shut off, the water wasn't shutting off all the way. So we isolated it. We shut off the valve, the shut-off valve underneath the sink, just to make sure that it was the hot side. And you can see right now, no dripping. So normally it would be drip about every, 5 seconds, and so nothing right now. Because we shut down the hot before we changed the cartridge, and of course there's water. Again, this water comes up and over and down, and so it just contains water until it's completely empty. And of course I can pull water out by doing that. Grabs a hold of the water that's a residual. But as far as dripping, there's no buildup and no drip. And so same thing with that. Once that valve is off, you'll have a little bit of residual water that by gravity will drop out of there, and it does pool up around this restrictor that's sitting in the faucet. And so a little bit of residual water will sit there, but it should not be a drip, drip, drip type situation anymore. So this is, again, straight from Delta. And these guys, that's the RP 25513, straight from Delta for the cartridge. And then, of course, we replaced the seat and spring as well. And so that is the RP 4993, and it's just a little spring and a cup that goes in the bottom right there, and you can see it's sitting, the old one's sitting right there, and then here's the old cartridge, and so it just spins. You can see like the rust colored stain right there on the bottom of this stainless steel, and so that's where it sits, and as you spin it, it opens and closes and allows water in and out. So anyways, that's done. This is back on. As you can tell, there's no water pouring out here anymore. There's no water dripping. Handle's right here. We'll put it back on in a minute. So this should stay dry now. You can see all of the scale buildup right here. All of that white discoloration, that's from water sitting on there. And 2 ways that happens. One, of course, when you use the sink and you wash up and you get water, on the fixtures. It can pool up on there and stain, or it's leaking out of the cartridge down onto the escutcheon and scaling. This one is worse than this one. I can see it, and so the hot side was the problem. So anyways, that's resolved in this bathroom and master bath. Outside of that, this installation is done. So we're in Clovis, California, taking a look at the toilet. I'm going to talk a little bit louder here, a little bit closer. You could hear the squeal, and probably have debris that's up in this. They've got a gasket up here, a vacuum breaker, little rubber gasket that sits in there, and so debris in there, and you can hear it's just squealing. So we'll replace that fill valve right there, take care of the problem. Outside of that, this inspection is done. So we're still here in Clovis, California, finishing working on the toilet here. We put a new fill valve in, and these are the Fluid Master 400A. Yeah, so the 400A. And that's just a standard replacement part. It's generic, not specific to Kohler, but that's what we use when we do replacements. And we did mount it a little bit higher. The old one was in there, was mounted very low, which was not allowing for a full fill of the toilet. It's a 1.6 gallon flush, so not a real big deal, but yeah, it's still not filling enough. Well, maybe we'll readjust that. But anyways, so main thing is the sound is gone, it's filling correctly, flushing correctly, shutting off correctly. Additionally, we did replace the flapper. That is a Kohler product, and got it adjusted so that you have just a little bit of play before the flapper activates. And the flush valve itself down below, you can't see it now because it's full of water, but the gasket is is coming apart. It's it appears from the discoloration on the mounting nut that we took out, that there was, at some point, there was some cleaning products in here, some Clorox tablets, and those eat away the rubber gaskets in here. So don't use those. I don't see any in here, so it was probably a previous owner had that going on. So anyways, so everything's good. Outside of that, this installation is done. So we're in Clovis, California. We just finished installing a new air gap up on the sink, new discharge hose, and you know, the old device, we couldn't see any blockages or why it wasn't functioning correctly, but the water was not discharging from dishwasher through the air gap. It was just coming out the front, flooding the countertop. And so the only thing we can do, the only plumbing thing that we can address, number one, air gap, either clean it out or replace it. It's just as fast to replace the thing instead of trying to clean it out. At least if it's new, you know there's no trouble with it. And then of course the discharge hose. The old one that was in there, it was a little too long, so there was excessive drooping in the line, which left a trap for water to set in. Plus it was kinked, and so you know, it would create, you'd have to have a pretty good, a substantial kink in the line to create enough back pressure to push it up through the air gap, but we replaced that as well. So again, you know, it's probably $2 for the hose. Just put it in there, no big deal. And then over here on the garbage disposal side, that's the only place that could be blocked is this port. So we shine a light in there, and it's clean all the way through. So no problem. That's on the plumbing side. At the dishwasher hose, I don't believe there's any trouble. It looks like a new dishwasher or newer, and it was making it up to the air gap, which means nothing wrong with the discharge hose or the appliance itself, because it was discharging into the sink. So we've replaced all the plumbing that can be replaced to help get this draining. So they're running a load of dishes right now, and of course, you know, when it finally does do a full discharge, we'll be able to hear it draining. Hopefully, fingers crossed, no water coming out of the air gap. Outside of that, this installation is done.